Hi, Cancer. Thank you so much for joining me and thank you for being a friend of my channel. So, Polina here talking to you about this 2024 business. To be defined or undefined, to say it straight up or to keep it secret, to tell everybody about what you really believe or not to tell anybody about anything. So, like the basic thing here is to question other people, to wait for your turn, to give thanks, and to be about it if you're really about it. If you are really about it, you'll get a volcanic result. If you really love somebody, you will know. If something you really deserve to be a part of, you will see. If there is somebody or something that you are absolutely real about, it is going to hit you. It's going to be really, really incredible and amazing to be part of something during this time. It's not for everybody. It's not for everything. So sometimes things are tailor made for you. You can't really judge it. You are either in it or you aren't, or you won't be. And it's just about basically trying to trust also a part of you that has sorrow and speaks of its own things. They're going to be squeaky, emotional, sentimental parts that are going to come out. There's going to be the dreamer that comes out of probably every Cancer during this time. There's going to be like the powerhouse also, then there's going to be the professor, there's going to be everything in between. It's a very, very, very maybe sometimes a boring personality as to what Cancer has to say in the end. But what sometimes people do is they make a wrong choice, and they can also make a wrong choice with you because you can overpromise. Here, Cancer might say everything and nothing at the same time. They might get very, very excited or very enlightened by somebody that means nothing to them. They might get very, very good at something they don't necessarily have to do. They might design a life that is perfect for them for 1 minute, but eventually it could actually not match the rest of their life. So there are lots of different parts of you. There's probably 5 different people that live inside the one person, and they all have different things to say. So where you are is best probably by the end of 23. You are feeling pretty cuddly. 23 was a really good year for Cancers. Mostly they would have come to at least one connection point, and maybe they have a great surprise waiting for them, or based on that connection point, or they have something or somebody that actually means something to them. Then basically close down the shop, close down the externalized way of giving yourself away. It is not a good idea at this point to compete, to contend, to have lots of conversations. I know that sometimes people need a person to match each part of their personality. It's like, for example, sometimes I have my crazy people, we go bike riding, like on our motorbikes, and sometimes I have my religious people, and sometimes, for example, I have my homely people, and then I have my crazy people, and then I have people that nobody knows about. I have my secret accounts online, and nobody knows I get into that, and then I've got like 2 or 3 other groups of people that I get into online. Then that's it. Maybe I have my neighbors. My neighbors don't know anything about me. They just know that I've got a motorbike and a cat. This is it basically. People looking at you from different levels. It's very easy to buy what Cancer is selling. Very easy this year to really love what Cancer is doing or how they are like treating themselves to other people. So in a sense, somebody else might be really, really fond of you, really crazy about you. Also very easy to be spotted. For example, you went to a rally and you didn't know that you were going to get spotted, and then your car gets its tire slashed. Very easy to get pinned down by the cops, for example. You were caught at a music festival, maybe smoking a certain substance, and then that's it. So very easy to be singled out and very easy to be a little bit in an uncomfortable place. You might be joking and accidentally you get yourself into a strange situation, into some sorrow. So for example, you're talking to a friend and you're arguing and you're like, I bet you $2,000 that will never happen. And then they're like, okay, I'll take your bet. Okay, I bet you. Yeah, I bet you too. I bet you that it will happen. Yeah, I will. I bet you. And then they win. So you have to then pay them $2,000. You see? So like there's like bets, people overpromising. Also like this is not like a year to be sad about what you're into. Um, Rabbit was more appropriate for controlling demographic input and output. It wasn't all about demographics and families and where you eventually end up, but it was definitely about channels and closing these channels if you have been hurt by a certain group of people or exposed to certain people. So, for example, a lot of the work that I've done for the last 2 or 3 years on myself and other people was erasing past memories and erasing past participation and wounding that came from a certain demographical crisis. So, for example, if I was subjected to certain types of environments as a child and given certain logic by my mother, that logic would have transferred into certain demographical participation. So, for example, my journey with my first boyfriend, or my journey with sex or sexuality or participation in any groups, was in a sense programmed by my parents' words and decision making. Okay, so why does somebody end up in a certain situation? Why are certain children exposed to negative, bad, or unruly behaviors from others, or just bad influences? Is because they've been, in a sense, groomed or made appropriate in a certain way that wasn't appropriate for them later on. So I'm still working this out in myself, and I'm helping. I've helped a lot of people with really, really big problems in their life leave certain demographical groups and appreciations for those groups and that type of lifestyle and decision making that comes from the deep, that comes from the dark. For example, culture of drinking, disrespect, informality, people that make a lot of bad decisions and naturally are coaxed and groomed into making bad decisions, and also nominated, energetically, culturally nominated to make bad decisions. That is a very complicated subject matter, and it can be resolved very quickly. So basically, don't participate. So don't participate if also there is a culture of violence or decay, obsession with death or obsession with black humor. Don't participate in it. That's always what I say. Like, this is after like years in subcultures and dealing with people and thinking they would change that have come from certain type of subcultural involvement. So I have now a pretty good core to help you if you keep on sliding into certain subculture patterns, or if you keep on being unconsciously nominated to make some bad decisions. As we all know, media, industries, all of that, does it, but it's not just this, it starts in home. So if you need some counseling or coaching or guidance, I'm here. But at the same time, I can't really tell you how, because part of Dragon Year specifically is about being very kind of intimidating and strong. And sometimes it's not kind of my choice. It's not anybody else's choice. It's not their formula maybe to give you advice. You see, so like, for example, some of us cannot do anything for you. So for example, if you go into drug abuse or bad behavior, or if you are going into alcoholism or any kind of ruckus or disorderly energies, there's nobody that can really protect you from yourself. But it's not actually just from yourself, just from choosing certain formats of how to express yourself. So I do also understand that sometimes it doesn't matter. It's like, I just want that moment, and I'm not keeping you guys away from it, as I've also had some clients that have taught me they don't want to end their cycles. So for example, I've had a few people come in that have had debauchery, abandoned sexuality, like ruthless sexuality, promiscuity, emotionality, depth, narcotics as part of their choices before, and they can't make any other choices because they don't want to. So if you are one of those cancers that knows when the time comes you just want to get drunk and go to town, or find a person to do something with, or you'll be one of those people that eventually has to cry about it or suffer from it, or make choices based upon these groups and based upon these cultures, I cannot help you, and maybe not a lot of people will. Not a lot of people would. So what that means is, like, some things are iconically you, and even if they are part of a certain type of cultural background, like, I don't know, like listening to ghetto music, or I don't know, black metal or something like that all day every day, and brooding and being angry as part of a certain type of demographical identity and demographical agenda, as there are these social waves that respect only something. So like, there's the working class hero, wave, so you got to like break yourself up, by working so hard, and then claim that prize that working so hard really gives, and compete with other people as to who does the most, and who has the best houses and the best families, based on their hard working ethic. That comes from Ireland, for example, or there's parts in the world, in the UK especially, where that's really, really high. The obsession with the hard-working hero, very optimistic people sometimes, very, very hard to talk to, very hard to get to know. There are lots of us that come from certain family lines and habits, and we don't think about it, we just do it. So, for example, I do also something that is lightly destructive. I cook for everybody, I cook for the village because it's where we're from. So like I am the mother suddenly, and I will not maybe do anything good to myself by doing that, but I will be the supporter, the provider, the listener, the taking of care person, as that is how I've been made. That's how, like, my ancestors have prized themselves. Every time there was a party or fiesta or a gathering, they would prize themselves on the most exquisite or delicately made or flavored dishes that they could possibly make. But of course, it's also part of Mediterranean and Arabic culture, as you see, and also part of French culture, So this is very ancient European style. Maybe this is ancient, but doesn't make it right, So like that's the thing. Walking into different environments, being different people, being with different karma, depending on how you are and how you act as a character during this kind of game of faces or game of energies during this particular year, it's just really hard to make you stop. And it's also very hard to make you lie. So that's the thing. We have all been kind of, in a sense, raised by certain parents. We're being groomed. We're being living in certain areas. We have been subjected to certain experiences and behaviors. We can't make it, past a certain point. And I fully recognize it, and I respect you for it. I respect people for it. They don't know how else. So, in a sense, if you are choosing fantasy over reality, if you want to believe yourself to be a very decadent person, or a very sad person, or a very debilitated person, or a drunk, or like a secret lover, or if you want to play these different characters, consider it as a caricature. As a caricature. So don't be afraid of it. Make fun of it. Make fun, because you need to do it yourself. You will not receive the same kind of compassion or the same kind of practices that you usually would. So, for example, if you are jumping between Alcoholics Anonymous and crazy parties, and then low self-esteem, and then having to go to work, doing incredibly well, being an incredibly good father or husband, and then eventually coming back to being alone, sitting alone, smoking a joint, in your shed, thinking about how far you've taken it, and then having like a secret person on your phone that sends you dirty messages, and then having to come back home to a woman, and then going back. Alcoholics Anonymous, crazy parties. You see, like, this is something that I'm telling you about, and I'm not necessarily catering for that particular part of the world or these particular habits. I'm just letting you know these are caricatures. And maybe inside, no, this is my life. Easy for you to say, like, this is really shallow thinking. Easy for you to say, like, you don't live my life, you haven't walked a day in your shoes. If you want, now this is really harsh and cruel and sometimes heartless, put your, this is thing, I'm sorry, put your money first, put your behavior first, try to be well behaved, try to put everything together, try to make sure that you have a soft, kind, and healthy life. But we all have different backgrounds and different beliefs. It's like, well, this is my choice. These are my kids. I do what I want. Like this kind of thing happens. And yeah, that's really powerful. For example, if your child sees you drunk, they will never forget it in this year. This year, will never forget it. So this is a photographic moment. So that's the thing about Dragon Year. Things don't just get promised, they get delivered, and they become endless. So for example, if you are nurturing two different relationships, like you have your wife and then you have your secret relationship, that'll probably never change. Like if you are trying to make money off something, if you are promising that you'll be there when you don't need to be there, if you are trying to do something undercover, or if you are agonizing over something, these are promises and they will be delivered. So for example, you made yourself a friend of somebody who may now rely on you, expect you. For example, a friend expects you to get drunk with him every week, expects you to turn up to the poker night every week. That's it. That's it. Don't overpromise. So don't promise anything. Try to get out of hysteria and arrogance and ignorance. ignorance are huge in 2024. And not just this, people don't really care. And the after effect or the cause and effect of this is they don't get it. They don't get it, but they won't probably ever forgive. And they don't really get how you're going to do it. They don't necessarily think about it. It's like, well, you promised me you turn up. You promised me. And of course, crime, subcultures, weird groups of people, weird conditioning. But here's the thing. Dragon is about being you. And if you've been taught by your peers or by your culture, by social media, by your mom and dad, by your ancestors to be ruckus and real and relevant, I do what the hell I want and I can drink whatever I want and I can be whoever I am. And if you're getting into that space in terms of where you're coming from and what that dragon means to you, kudos to you. Nobody can do anything here, and people can only kind of support you. And it's interesting that communities will even support a racist, angry, scary, degraded, fallen person because they don't necessarily need that to stop. And sometimes, since Babylonian times, not necessarily, since all villages, since all parties, even if you have a party of 12 people, there are going to be people that are taking a role or a shape that doesn't necessarily have to be people, falling in love with people that are not appropriate, people having relationships with people that are not appropriate. It's not necessarily them, and it's not necessarily I do what I want. It's the group nominates. The group naturally grows through chaos and solving of that chaos. So in any group of people, even like if you've ever done like family constellations journeys, maybe there is something like that has happened also. Ayahuasca ceremonies, this happens a lot. There is a good guy and the bad guy, and then there's a people in between. There's a comforter, there's a nurturer, there's a person that doesn't care, there's a person that wants to be outside of the group all the time, and there's a person that doesn't want to, but they feel incredible longing. And that's how like the whole group starts to vibrate. So you are part of like global consciousness, unless of course somewhere in the middle you don't care. So you probably wouldn't even care about this information. It's like I'll just take life as it comes, and that can also work. But yeah, life as it comes. So we're coming into a more like sort of slightly Buddhist-y energy, Buddhist, mellow feelings, maybe the closed eyes, and saying, look, I just want to go through my life without these ups and downs, without scariness. I don't want to have any more fights at my house. I don't want to have any more mysteries to solve. I honestly, look, I just want to have a nice, healthy, simple life. Maybe this means that parts of you stay away or stay alone. Maybe you need a lot of meditation practice. Maybe you need a lot of water. Maybe you need a lot of healing. Maybe you need a lot of health practices, health-based practices, or you need a lot of friends. All this is it. Basically, you can't really be there unless you feel hopeful and kind and genuine in everything. And that's a very, very special guide. So if you are becoming yourself as if nature or as if water, very slow and understanding, I'll only show up if I'm really feeling like a little feeling like inside, and that little feeling is guiding me home, guiding me closer to the center. That's a very good type of guide to have. So it's more about feeling mellow and not caring about anybody blowing up their personality above anybody else's, not caring about people's houses or their cars or their four-wheel drives or their kids or anybody. And the information that you're receiving from the external world is like, I'm like water, or like I'm like nature. I come and I fit and I see and I smell and I look, and then I kind of get what I want or I receive, and then I listen and I feel and then I leave. So I'm like a passing phenomena, or I am just experiencing life in a very primordial, natural way. That's very perfect for most cancers. And not necessarily being the fly on the wall, but sometimes it's like, I like it here because it's warm. It's like I will come in and I'll heat myself by the fire, or I listen to the songs, or I listen to the stories, and then I let go and I go somewhere else. Most people in the world have the capacity to live this way. Nobody necessarily has to build a castle or a village. Nobody necessarily has to be in extreme states of respect or disrespect. Nobody has to feel that power. Nobody has to play the game. Every single person has the right to just enjoy themselves and take life for what it is, which is just a passing phenomena. It's not a permanent, perfect phenomena. It's just a passing phenomena. It's like I ate a meal and I really enjoyed it. It was good. It's not like I'm going to just blog about this meal and tell everybody and learn how to make it. Like, you don't need to make a big deal about anything. It's like nothing is that big a deal, and nothing is that driven, and nothing is that bad. It's just having a certain type of poise and respect for all other people involved in the story. And that's exactly that. So it's just having a nice, simple, alkaline relationship with another person, having a simplicity, and then having to keep hold of that which you've got inside, because maybe you don't any longer see it as damaged goods or damaged. Maybe you're seeing it as treasure, actually. You don't necessarily have to give off this vibe of being a big tiger or being a big lawyer or being a big woman. You don't have to necessarily be in your body. You just basically have to think for yourself, think about yourself, and maybe your next step. So it's about secrets, and yes, to a degree, it's about strategies. It's about being strategic about what you say, and some of the time not showing up. So people call you, they ask you to show up, but you just understand it's going to get a little bit rude or messy or something, so you just don't. So it's just about social etiquette and keeping yourself kind of poised and covered. It's like, so you're not walking out there naked, so you have a certain level of mystery, and you're training yourself to get through things, and not having to grow inwards necessarily, but a recognition sometimes emitting a lot of energy can hurt you or can be expensive later. So, for example, having a big fight is just expensive later. Having a sad day also can be kind of expectant of something else to change. Like all of these hard yards and expectations and experiences and meanings and building like a community or house with somebody, trying to be interactive, trying to be aggressive, trying to learn, trying to understand, trying to feel, trying to learn something. That's not going to maybe be good that to that many people. Sorry, mix my words up. But like there's going to be always like a party or a place that is just simply given. It's like, well, if you can imagine somebody offering a piece of fruit to a child, here, you know, it's a very nice feeling. Here, that's it. The fruit is given to Cancer sometimes because they have committed to a certain neutrality or a certain culture of respect. So respectfulness and being needed in the story, being necessary, and then eventually having to leave and having less interest in other people than normal, maybe to a degree. And unfortunately, there's a very clingy, mysterious, emotional, very uneconomical part to Cancer. It's like, I can't forgive you, I can't forget you, I've been thinking about you all night, all this crap. And then it starts making a little fire, and then, the fire gets bigger, and then bigger, bigger, bigger. And maybe sometimes somebody puts it out, or sometimes they won't. So nobody is responsible for you and how you live your life. Nobody is responsible for your quote-unquote sins or for your hurt or your heartache. Nobody can give you anything else than what they have already given you. So in a sense, you have to understand and maybe not speak a lot of things. Sometimes people are very emotional and they spin things out and they drive things beyond a certain point or way beyond a certain purpose. And then eventually that becomes, in a way, sinful or distorted, or there's just like a lot of like cause and effect that one has to fight. It's like, constantly having to mop things up, constantly having to be, controlled, and feelings, emotions, like all of this. Can't you tell it's a little bit like going around in a circle. So I suppose what I would advise is to keep knowledgeable and try to offer yourself some space and be sometimes on the outside. It's not important to share every single thought or story. It's not necessary to be somebody who gives regularly. It's not appropriate sometimes to be the leader or like the cowboy or whatever, and it's not good enough for you sometimes. And then to remain in good self-esteem. So this is like about inward learning, inward journeying, having a nice fire going within, having nice digestive fire, having a nice hearty feeling inside. And then not to show anybody else how it's done, because everybody's on their own during this kind of year. You don't have to whip it out, like I got a great idea, or like, look, I got a gun or something. You don't have to whip anything out. It's not about whipping things out for other people, like respect, or hey, I got a present for you. Hey, guess what? I got some candy. There's like nothing really that sinful also necessarily about it. It's just like it's not necessary. It's like for show doesn't work. It's for show for a lot of people, and a lot of people are going crazy, and they're getting also very emotional and cuddly with people that have absolutely no self-respect or resonance. And then there are just fights and drunks and emotions and unneeded business, unneeded conversations, unneeded disrespectful to all people. So being loud, being obnoxious, being sinful, being insincere, being repetitive, being also eventually incredibly boring. So like that's the thing. It's just like having to do things by and by. If you have a beautiful system, for example, you use handicrafts or housekeeping or gardening to get yourself together. If you are naturally a good therapist or balancer for other people, if you enjoy therapies, if you yourself enjoy nature, if you understand what is Zen, maybe you have a certain religious or spiritual practice, it's really good. So you basically have to stay inside a certain balance, you know, and then it's not really necessary what comes, but pay attention. Sometimes people will come up and give you something. So that feeling of, hey, look at this. Were you looking for this? It's like, this is a piece of fruit, or like, this is the perfect batch of oysters, or like, this is the perfect surprise, this is the perfect group of people. Try and handle that. Sometimes it's hard. That's depending on how you've done. So you might actually be witnessing something beyond your words, like, for example, meeting the most beautiful person that you've ever met in your life. In your life. Like, wow, and then that's it. You don't have to get committal. You don't have to text them all the time. Just don't be a creep. Like be kind, and also be kind to yourself and your heart. It's like you don't need to take pictures of them. You don't need to get to bed with them. You don't have to invite them on expensive holidays. It's just about a simple life. It's like, wow, I've met somebody who really inspired me. Okay, great, awesome, and that's it. Or like, I had the best day, or I got invited to a beautiful place. Okay, cool, and that's it. And okay, cool, nice. Accept it and move on. So you don't have any attachment. Oh, what does it mean? What does it mean? Do they like me? It's like, no, it's like, what am I going to get to do this again? It's like, move on. Move on. And then, like, wash yourself from everything else. You don't have to repeat the same experience. You don't have to wash and dry. You don't have to scour away. You don't have to poison yourself, So it's just kind of like you're free. You're free. And things get presented, and then they don't, and then wow, okay, oh wow, yeah, that's a whole year, and then September comes, we're going further towards snake year. It doesn't have to be, but it will be about habits. So a lot of these really crazy lives that people are living, a lot of that potential, a lot of the sexuality and romance and emotions, all of that anger, all of that, also cycles of abuse or dominance or different predispositions, different people's auras, different people's lives, credentials, legacies, potential, big stuff. Maybe this starts to get a little bit rotten or boring. You might even see, wow, a lot of these people that I know trying to do so big, like such a big thing, they're not really necessarily happy. It's not about judgment. It's just like, oh, I'm not really sure if this works. So it's just about getting to your feet and walking away, walking around, looking at life, looking at what people are, And maybe as we go into snake, maybe it isn't about being an exemplary person, being somebody, being this big one, this big like snake or this big dragon. It's not necessary. Maybe it's just about growing into a more comfortable person, and then snake has to justify things for you. It puts things into perspective. Now here's how you live, This is where you're gonna go. This is your job. This is your husband, or this is your child. This is your money. This is how you make it. That's it. It's a very, very justifying feeling, and you have to learn, maybe not to necessarily nurture it, but abide by it. And here's where I get it. If most of Dragon, you will get this emotion like, I'm better than this. I'm better than anybody else. Actually, you know what? I'm really funny. Or like, oh, did you see me do this trick? So this exemplary energy, why this comes up sometimes is because a person is nervous about what they're going to be eventually a part of. And if you notice, it's like a cycle of poverty. A lot of people that have nothing to lose or feel that they've got nothing to lose go into these extremes and situations that are dangerous. Like if you look at cycles of like financial poverty, lack, hardship, scary environments, scary jobs, scary experiences, destitute energies, destitute lives, very, very quickly you'll find excess. An excess of energies and obsession and distance from something else like glamour and excess. Sometimes, come to the party when it comes to having a boring life or unhappy life or maybe a bad situation. So badness is like comedy and tragedy. Badness, feeling somehow disqualified or not rich enough or not full enough leads people to these excessive strategies, and that is not how you make your life. It's not how you need to do it. So basically, and I also do understand sometimes people want to burst and they want to be one of the best, So for example, people training all their life to do something or be somebody to take themselves somewhere else than where their parents have been. And that's also normal, kind of normal to see. But just careful with this urgency because it may not be the way. So try to find a calmer, more holistic way or approach to how you're going to basically live your life, and then snake is going to be no problem. But I do definitely understand if a person is not using their body, if they're not using their potential, if they're not in a way cool enough to fit in sometimes, if they're not sure, they sometimes get a weird place. So this is the question, where do I end up? Where do I get to live? Where am I going to actually show up? Or like, what is my life going to end up or add up to? Like, am I going to live in a beautiful house outside of the city, or am I going to live in a little crammed apartment? Am I going to have to like work an office job, or do I get to like work for myself somewhere? Or do I have a partner that provides for me? That's probably a question on the mind of a lot of people. And then the end of the year is going to definitely critically dictate to some people as to where they're going to end up or show up later. So if you're living in a beautiful ashram or if you're living in a little box, this sometimes depends on a lot of factors in life. And I don't necessarily feel necessarily judgmental of that person that will crack and no matter what try to punch themselves out of their previous dispositions. Maybe their ancestors have gone through so much poverty and so much shame and destitute that they really, really wish to have something better and brighter happen in their world today. And that is also a path that is also understandable why some people through conquest, like even sometimes, and it's not necessary conquest, just like depth and pride, wish to change their world. But there are lots of people in the world that have formed their governments even or their livelihoods based on peace and understanding. So these warring cultures and these cults and alliances of oppression, and conquest, maybe they have to stop. But this maybe depends on you and who you are. Thank you so much, Cancer. Enjoy. And I'll see you next time. Also have a look at my book. I have a Patreon page. Have a look at my art. And if you like, you can also book a reading with me. Thank you. Bye.